Jiang Nanqing died on the road to famine, but heaven gave her another chance to return to the beginning of famine. She won't let herself and her family repeat the same mistakes this time. Is there no food on the way to escape from famine? How could it be? Holding space is not afraid of running out of food. Is there anyone on the way to escape from famine who is jealous and robs? Don't be afraid, cute pets have 3 gold coins and 1 dozen 5. Encountering enemy troops on the way to escape. And wait, I still have cheats. Keywords of the novel. Returning to the beginning of escape, grasping space to counterattack without pop-ups, returning to the beginning of escape, grasping space to counterattack. Download the complete text, returning to the beginning of escape, grasping space to counterattack the latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Rebirth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Rebirth, why haven't you woken up yet? Didn't the doctor say you could wake up at noon? Wei Haixio looked at the person lying in bed and said anxiously. She sighed and thought to herself that she should have followed Jiang Nanqing's wishes long ago, so now Jiang Nanqing wouldn't be lying in bed. Jiang Shidong frowned and said, I'll go invite the doctor to come and take a look. Not long after Jiang Shidong left, the person on the bed made a delicate voice. Wei Haixio, who was guarding the bed, quickly leaned over and asked Jiang Nanqing in bed. Nanqing, have you woken up? Jiang Nanqing instinctively shouted, water, I want to drink water. Okay, I'll get you water right away. Wei Haixio quickly brought the water over, with one hand holding Jiang Nanqing's back and helping her up, then feeding the water to her mouth. Jiang Nanqing started drinking heavily, as if she hadn't been drinking water for a long time. A lot of water flowed down her smooth chin and eventually disappeared into her clothes. Cough, cough, cough. Jiang Nanqing drank too quickly and choked. Wei Haixio patted Jiang Nanqing's back and said. Slow down, no one is competing with you. Jiang Nanqing coughed a few times, then suddenly lifted her head and stared at Wei Haixio in front of her. Her delicate face was full of shock, and she shouted incredulously. Aunt Haixio. Do you still want to drink water? You just woke up and can't drink so much water at once. I cooked you white rice porridge with some meat in it. You wait, I'll bring it to you. Wei Haixio wants to serve congee, but Jiang Nanqing grabs her hand with great strength. Jiang Nanqing stared straight at Wei Haixio's face, then shifted her gaze to the surroundings. Is this your own room? Jiang Nanqing's breathing slowed down a bit, and she closed her eyes in disbelief before opening them again. Really, it's actually true. Jiang Nanqing's nails unknowingly sank into Wei Haixio's flesh, causing her to gasp for air in pain. Hiss, what's wrong with Nanqing? Jiang Nanqing quickly released Wei Haixio's hand and suddenly laughed, excitedly saying. Aunt Haixio, the clothes you're wearing today are really nice. Wei Haixio looked at Jiang Nanqing inexplicably, not knowing why Jiang Nanqing suddenly boasted about herself. However, Jiang Nanqing did not praise Wei Haixio for no reason. She had indeed not seen the clothes Wei Haixio was wearing for a long time. On the way to escape, the clothes are not even guaranteed to be clean, dirty, and almost all of them are of the same color. That's right, Jiang Nanqing has been reborn. She died on the way to escape, and then opened her eyes and returned to the time when she had not yet escaped. Wei Haixio said, if you like it, I'll find someone to make it for you. Aunt Haixio, I want to eat. Jiang Nanqing looked at Wei Haixio with a burning gaze. Okay, I'll go get it for you. Wei Haixio was somewhat surprised as she watched Jiang Nanqing wolf down her food. Jiang Nanqing usually eats slowly and carefully, and is very picky. The Jiang family is not a wealthy family with many rules, but Jiang Nanqing lives a similar life to the ladies of those wealthy families. However, this is also because the Jiang family has a lot of land, not lacking in food and not much in money, otherwise they wouldn't be able to withstand Jiang Nanqing's extravagance. Wei Haixio had not yet regained consciousness when Jiang Nanqing handed the bowl he had eaten all over to her. Also. Ah. Wei Haixio was indeed surprised by Jiang Nanqing. Jiang Nanqing's beautiful eyebrows furrowed tightly and he asked, "Is it gone?" "Yes, yes, yes." Jiang Nanqing drank 3 bowls of congee in a row until his stomach could no longer hold it, and he even wanted to vomit. End of this chapter. Chapter 2 is the beginning. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 is the beginning, but her heart was very satisfied. The feeling of having food in her stomach was really good. Wei Haixio asked softly, "Do you have any discomfort, Nanqing?" Jiang Nanqing shook her head and said, "I want to stay alone for a while." "Okay, then take a break." Wei Haixio took a few steps and then turned around and said, "Your father has gone to invite a doctor for you. Let the doctor show you later." "No, I want to stay alone for a while." Wei Haixio hesitated for a moment. She felt that something was wrong with Jiang Nanqing, but Jiang Nanqing had a bad temper. Sometimes if she didn't follow her, she would make a fuss. "Okay, then rest well and call me if you have anything to do." After Wei Haixio left, Jiang Nanqing kept her eyes open and looked around. "I really came back, that's great." Watching Jiang Shidong return with the doctor, Wei Haixio quickly stepped forward and said, "Nan is sober now." Jiang Shidong breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Just wake up, but the doctor has arrived. Let the doctor take another look. Nanqing is sleeping again and doesn't want anyone to disturb her." Wei Haixio said apologetically to the doctor, "Jiang, could you please come and see if Nanqing is in any major trouble?" Jiang nodded and said, "If you're okay, then I'll go back first." Wei Haixio quickly stuffed the bag containing 31 into Jiang Langzhong, as it was not worth a trip. Dr. Jiang evaded and felt embarrassed to accept the money. Jiang Shidong spoke up and said, "Jiang Lang, please accept it. Thanks to you, otherwise Nanqing wouldn't have woken up so quickly." Jiang made several excuses, but seeing that Jiang Shidong and the others really wanted to give it to him, he took it on. After all, life is not easy now. The price of grain is increasing day by day, and the amount of copper coins in my pocket is decreasing. There are still several people in my family waiting to eat. When will these days finally come to an end? After seeing off Dr. Jiang, Jiang Shidong sighed and said, "The days are getting more and more difficult now. Just now I saw that Dr. Zhang's house was full of wild vegetables, and the congee in the bowl was full of water." Upon hearing Jiang Shidong's words, Wei Haixio's expression immediately became solemn, and she naturally knew the situation in the village. This year's harvest is not good. It has been so long without rain, and the court is constantly collecting grain. We ordinary people. Jiang Shidong heard Wei Haixio mention something wrong with the court and quickly scolded, "Shut up, say everything out loud. If someone hears this, it will bring harm." Wei Haixio closed his mouth in a casual manner. "Dad, where's Xinliang?" Jiang Nanqing suddenly ran out and asked. "Nanqing, how did you run out? You're not wearing shoes, hurry back to the house." Wei Haixio was frightened when she saw Jiang Nanqing running out wearing only an inner garment. Jiang Shidong saw Jiang Nanqing's appearance and said in a deep voice, "What kind of behavior is it? Go back to me." Jiang Nanqing stubbornly asked, "Where is Xinliang?" Jiang Xinliang is the half-brother of Jiang Nanqing, who is also the son of Wei Haixio. Wei Haixio was Jiang Nanqing's stepmother, but Jiang Nanqing refused to call her mother and kept calling her aunt. Previously, Jiang Shidong scolded Jiang Nanqing a lot for this matter, but Jiang Nanqing didn't change his mind, and Wei Haixio didn't argue with her and let her go. Wei Haixio said, "Xinliang is in the academy. Nanqing, what do you want to do with Xinliang? If there is nothing at home, he probably won't be able to come back for a while." Jiang Nanqing said anxiously, "Aunt Haixio, hurry up and let Xinliang come back." Let him come back now. Jiang Nanqing was just immersed in the joy of rebirth, but soon regained consciousness. He was too happy too early, and now is the beginning of everything. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Going in person. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Going in person. If I remember correctly, the incident will come soon, so I must ask Jiang Xinliang to go home as soon as possible. Wei Haixio asked in confusion, what happened? Xinliang can't come back casually. Nanqing, please let me know if you have anything. No, he must come back. Well, Wei Haixio looked puzzled. Nanqing, don't worry, tell me what happened first. Jiang Nanqing bit her lip. She couldn't say she was reborn, she knew what would happen next before. If I dare to say that, I will definitely be regarded as insane and no one will believe it. After all, this matter is too bizarre, even I am still in a daze, as if it is just a dream. But even in dreams, one should also live a good life in them. Jiang Shidong saw Jiang Nanqing playing around again and sternly scolded. What are you messing around again? Your younger brother is doing well in the academy. What are you doing when he comes back? But when he saw Jiang Nanqing's weak face, he spoke softly. All right, go back to your room and rest. You just woke up weak. Wei Haixio agreed and said, yes, yes. Nanqing, please go back to your room and rest. Later, I will stew a hen for you to replenish your health. Jiang Shidong thought of the current situation outside and spoke up. Keep the chicken and cook something else. Jiang Nanqing glanced lightly at Wei Haixio. She didn't believe that Wei Haixio didn't know about the current situation outside, but she even suggested stewing a hen. Isn't this intentional to make Jiang Shidong feel that he didn't understand? In his past life, he didn't care about the situation outside. At that time, Wei Haixio also said to stew a hen for himself, but Jiang Shidong disagreed. Then, he felt that Jiang Shidong didn't hurt him, and he even couldn't bear to give himself a chicken to eat, causing a big scene. In the end, it was natural to stew the hen at home, and it was the last hen because recently all the hens at home have died one after another. Not only chickens, but also many other livestock have died, and the rest are mostly half dead. Perhaps this is the last warning from heaven before a major disaster or disaster. Jiang Nan nodded and said, well, Aunt Haixio, you can cook me something else later. Let's keep the hen at home to lay eggs, and we can have a few more eggs in a day. Boil me 2 eggs. After that, Jiang Nanqing licked her mouth. Just now, she had several bowls of congee. Although she was still full, her mouth was greedy. On the way to escape, she could not even eat eggs. Wei Haixio and Jiang Shidong were both stunned. Jiang Shidong nodded and said with satisfaction. Okay, I'll have Aunt Haixio cook it for you later. Jiang Nanqing returned to his room, pondering how to get Jiang Xinliang back from the academy. In his previous life, Jiang Xinliang was in the academy. When he was fleeing, Jiang Shidong and Wei Haixio risked their lives to find him, but did not find him in time. They also missed the best time to escape and suffered a lot. Later, they were lucky enough to meet Jiang Xinliang on the way to escape. So I must make Jiang Xinliang come back as soon as possible, I can't repeat the same mistake, and I can't leave him alone. Jiang Nanqing bit his lip, and his father and Aunt Haixio would definitely not let him come back easily. If someone secretly sends a message to Jiang Xinliang, it is a bit urgent, and if Jiang Xinliang doesn't come back, it will be troublesome. So the only way now is to go find Jiang Xinliang on your own and bring him back. If you go there yourself, Jiang Xinliang will definitely come back with you. Because he greatly respects his sister and treats him wholeheartedly. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Going Together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. Going Together. Jiang Nanqing's eyes were slightly moist as she thought of what Jiang Xinliang had done for her on the road to escape in her previous life. After finishing dinner at night, Jiang Nanqing returned to the house early. Jiang Shidong Wei Haixio didn't feel anything. After all, Jiang Nanqing had just woken up from a coma, so it would be better to rest early. Jiang Nanqing, who returned to the room, did not rest. Instead, she was rummaging through boxes and cabinets looking for clothes, but her clothes were very eye-catching and not suitable for wearing now. Finally, Jiang Nanqing sneaked into Jiang Xinliang's room and took a suit of Jiang Xinliang's clothes. Although Jiang Xinliang is a few years younger than Jiang Nanqing, his clothes can still be worn by Jiang Nanqing. Starting now, we should be able to reach the academy tomorrow. Without delay, Jiang Nanqing couldn't care too much anymore. She took food, filled the water bag, left a letter, and prepared to go out. Jiang Nanqing was about to leave through the back door when she suddenly felt something coming to rub against her calf. She was startled and focused, only to find out that it was raised at home. In an instant, she breathed a sigh of relief. Watching the dog circling around her legs, her throat still emitting excited sobs, Jiang Nanqing unusually reached out to stroke it. Sanjin became even more excited, his tail wagging desperately. Sanjin was accidentally found by Jiang Nanqing, who took care of it on a whim for a while. Later, he found it troublesome and threw it to Jiang Xinliang. And the name Sanjin was chosen by Jiang Nanqing to humiliate Jiang Xinliang. Jiang Nanqing whispered to Sanjin, "Sanjin, I will treat you well this time. You stay at home and wait for me to come back." Jiang Nanqing took a few steps and noticed that Sanjin was following him step by step, so he smiled and said, "Are you going to go find Xinliang with me?" Sanjin whimpered twice, as if responding to Jiang Nanqing. Jiang Nanqing had never been on a long journey on his own, and it was still evening. Even if Jiang Nanqing had to live again, he still felt somewhat scared. If there is Sanjin accompanying you on the road, it is indeed a bit comforting, and Sanjin is only gentle in front of his family. When it comes to being tough, not even a few people may be its opponents. Okay, then let's go find him together and bring him back. Our family won't have any problems this time. Jiang Nanqing set off with Sanjin to find Jiang Xinliang. The moonlight tonight was pretty good, barely enough to show the path under his feet. When Jiang Shidong Wei Haixio discovered that Jiang Nanqing was missing, it was already the second day. Seeing the letter left by Jiang Nanqing, Jiang Shidong became very angry. At this moment, Jiang Nanqing and Sanjin were sitting on a donkey cart. She took out food from her bundle and handed it halfway to Sanjin's mouth. The donkey cart was driven by an elderly man with white hair. Jiang Nanqing met him halfway and offered him some food to take him on a journey. Jiang Nanqing opened the water bag and took a sip, then used his palm to take some water for Sanjin to drink. Nowadays, many people on the road have come out to look for wild vegetables to eat, old and young. Their bodies are withered and waxen yellow, their eyes are dull and numb, as if there is no hope left. Jiang Nanqing sighed, at least there are still some wild vegetables to eat, and it will only become increasingly difficult in the future. When his classmate came over and told Jiang Xinliang that someone was looking for him, he thought it was Wei Haixio looking for him. When he saw Jiang Nanqing dressed in a disheveled outfit, he was taken aback for a moment. Jiang Nanqing couldn't help but see Jiang Xinliang. Although he was younger than himself, he left all his food to himself, while he went to nibble on the hard-to-swallow bark. He was so hungry that he tightly wrapped a cloth around his stomach. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Why are you crying? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Why are you crying? Upon seeing Jiang Xinliang, Sanjin pounced and happily wagged his tail. Jiang Xinliang is very kind to Sanjin, treating it like his own brother. After all, he raised it on his own. But at this moment, he didn't have time to pay attention to Sanjin. When he saw Jiang Nanqing crying, he was completely at a loss. He carefully wiped off the eyeballs on Jiang Nanqing's face and stuttered, asking, "Sister, what's wrong with you? Don't cry, don't cry." Jiang Nanqing smiled and said, "It's okay, it's just that I'm glad to see you. As soon as Jiang Nanqing said these words, Jiang Xinliang didn't know how to react, as if he was stunned by the sudden joy. I am also happy and delighted to see my sister. Jiang Xinliang revealed his pure white teeth and a bright smile. Sister, did you come here alone? Jiang Nanqing nodded and said, Xinliang, you should come home with me immediately. What's going on at home? Jiang Nanqing's expression was so serious for the first time. Jiang Xinliang's heart skipped a beat, thinking that something major had happened at home. Almost, Jiang Nanqing picked up Jiang Xinliang's hand and said, let's go back with me. Okay, Jiang Xinliang paused for a moment and said, sister, please wait a moment. I'll have someone help me take a leave. Jiang Nanqing really wanted to say that there was no need to take any leave anymore. It was estimated that Jiang Xinliang would not have the chance to come back, but he had already rushed in to find someone to help him take his leave. Jiang Nanqing could only shout to his back, pack up the important things and take them with you. Jiang Xinliang's movements were quick, and he came out of the academy in no time. He took Jiang Nanqing on a familiar journey and invited a donkey cart. The journey back was too far, and he could walk back on his own, afraid that Jiang Nanqing would not be able to bear it. Sitting on the donkey cart, Jiang Xinliang anxiously asked. Sister, what happened at home? It's my parents and the others. Jiang Xinliang couldn't answer the following questions. Jiang Nanqing shook his head and said. No, Dad and Aunt Haixio are very good, you don't have to worry. What is that? Jiang Nanqing looked at Jiang Xinliang seriously and asked, Xinliang, do you believe me? Without hesitation, Jiang Xinliang nodded and said, believe it. Okay, then do as I say. Don't ask too many questions, I don't know how to explain to you, anyway I won't harm you. Well, I know you won't harm me, sister. Sanjin had been neglected by Jiang Xinliang all along, so he rubbed his head against Jiang Xinliang's leg. Jiang Xinliang touched its head and smiled, saying, Sanjin, don't make a fuss. Jiang Nanqing looked quietly at Jiang Xinliang and Sanjin, then shifted his gaze and looked elsewhere. Jiang Xinliang regarded Sanjin as his own brother, but in his previous life, he personally committed suicide for himself. Jiang Nanqing's consciousness was very vague at the time, but she could vaguely see the reluctance in Sanjin's eyes and the endless pain in Jiang Xinliang's eyes. Jiang Xinliang has no choice, but if there is something to eat, Jiang Nanqing may have a glimmer of hope, so he can only go after Sanjin because there is really nothing else to eat. Jiang Nanqing couldn't forget the taste in her mouth at that time, bitter, too bitter. Sister, why are you crying again? Jiang Xinliang asked with concern. Jiang Nanqing doesn't like to cry, but within a day, Jiang Xinliang saw her cry twice and couldn't help but feel a little worried. Jiang Nanqing reached out to touch the tears on her face and said with a firm gaze. I won't cry anymore. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Has changed a lot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 has changed a lot. Upon seeing Jiang Nanqing return, Jiang Shidong was so angry that he threw a cup at her and shouted angrily, pointing at her. Do you still have the face to come back? Just leave without saying a word, and if you leave, you will never come back. Wei Haixio quickly said, as long as Nanqing comes back safely, why are you so angry? Don't scare her. Are you okay, Nanqing? How did you dress up like this? Jiang Nanqing has certain requirements for her clothing, food, housing, and transportation, but now she is dressed in a disheveled manner, her hair is all tied up, and there is not a single piece of jewelry on her body. Even her beautiful and charming face is not painted with anything, completely lacking the usual charm. Jiang Shidong's anger never subsided, and seeing Jiang Nanqing like this made him even angrier, shouting loudly. What do you look like now? Are you trying to beg outside or are you deliberately trying to hit me in the face? Rebel girl, can you just keep going for a day? I think you get used to it too much and can't let you act recklessly anymore. Go back to your own room and don't come out until you know it's wrong. Wei Haixio quickly said, Xianggong, what are you doing? Nanqing is just a child, what are you arguing with her about? Jiang Xinliang also said, Dad, it's not my sister's fault for this. If you want to blame me, then blame me. It's because I miss my sister too much that I asked her to come find me. If you want to punish me, then punish me. Jiang Shidong was so angry that he couldn't speak when he saw Wei Haixio and Jiang Xinliang still helping Jiang Nanqing speak. He could only point his finger at them. Jiang Nanqing asked calmly, Dad, how much food does our family still have? Jiang Shidong said angrily, You won't die of hunger. Do you have a dagger or something at home? What do you want to do? Jiang Shidong asked seriously. Self-defense, not only do I need it, but you also need it, Dad. You need to prepare quickly, just a dagger is not enough. Jiang Nanqing felt that he had to carefully organize the things he needed to take along the way. With so many things, he couldn't bring all of them, otherwise it would be difficult to move forward, so he had to carefully choose. What exactly do you want, rebellious girl? I'm telling you, no nonsense. I'm not fooling around, Dad. Trust me once, I need to quickly list out the things I need to bring and prepare them as soon as possible. After speaking, Jiang Nanqing disregarded the astonished eyes of Jiang Shidong and his companions and strode towards his own room, muttering something in his mouth. Jiang Shidong glanced at Jiang Nanqing's back, then turned to Jiang Xinliang and asked a moment later. Did your sister encounter something outside? Jiang Xinliang thought for a moment and didn't encounter anything on the way back, but he wasn't sure if Jiang Nanqing had encountered anything on the way to find him. He also felt that Jiang Nanqing was very abnormal, having changed a lot. He couldn't say it, but he could feel it. Jiang Xinliang spoke out what he was thinking, and Jiang Shidong rubbed his temples and said. Nanqing, this child is indeed different from before, but it is still so headache-inducing. Thinking about it one after another, he actually ran to call you back. He is too stubborn and reckless. Jiang Xinliang said, It's been so long since I've been back, and I've been thinking about my family. If my sister doesn't come to see me, I also plan to take a leave and come back. Wei Haixio nodded and said, Yes, you always remember Xinliang. Now that he's back, you should be happy. Jiang Shidong stared in the direction of Jiang Nanqing's room and said, Should I still be grateful to her when we're together? End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Let's go. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Let's go. Jiang Nanqing carefully thought about the items needed on the escape route, picked them up, and then listed them one by one on the paper. Jiang Xinliang was holding the pastry and was about to knock on the door when it opened from inside. You've come just in time, Jiang Nanqing said as he handed a piece of paper to Jiang Xinliang. You should hurry up and prepare everything on this. Jiang Xinliang glanced at the items listed on the paper and asked with a twitch of his eyelids. Sister, what are you writing on this? Just prepare it, I have other things to prepare. Jiang Nanqing hurriedly roared out. Do you still know how to come back? What did you do outside? Didn't I let you stay in your own room peacefully? Jiang Shidong stared at Jiang Nanqing who had come back from outside and asked. Jiang Nanqing sat down next to Jiang Shidong, poured himself a glass of water, and drank it all in one gulp. Jiang Shidong's mouth twitched slightly when he saw her so bold movements. How could his daughter make such a rude gesture? She wouldn't have done this before. Dad, the key to the granary is with you. Please prepare the grain according to the instructions above. I have calculated that preparing so much grain is enough for us to eat for a while. We can't bring too much, so let's just distribute the rest to the other people in the village. We can't give those grandsons a cheap price. Jiang Shidong looked at the paper placed by Jiang Nanqing in front of him, and combined with what Jiang Nanqing said, his whole body was not doing well, and he laughed in anger. Are you going to beg for food with your whole family? Jiang Nanqing, you need to have some tolerance for being stubborn. Dad, I'm not joking with you. I'll analyze it carefully for you. Jiang Nanqing couldn't directly tell Jiang Shidong about his rebirth. It's estimated that if he did, Jiang Shidong would directly believe that he has lost his mind, so he can only analyze the current situation for him. You should be aware of the situation outside. Our village is pretty good, but people have started to starve to death elsewhere. Do you know why the court is so eager to collect grain, Dad? Jiang Nanqing paused for a moment, then leaned closer to Jiang Shidong and continued in a low voice, that's because we're preparing for war. The court is preparing for military rations, which is why they are so urgent in collecting grain. When that time comes, we'll be in turmoil here. No, it should be said that this area will be full of countless casualties. Jiang Shidong slammed the table heavily and stared at Jiang Nanqing, asking, "Where did you hear all this nonsense? What kind of war is there? I see you're confused. Besides, the affairs of the court are not something that ordinary people like us can criticize. Please keep your mouth shut for me. If you dare to say these heinous and immoral things outside, I'll have to break your legs." If Jiang Nanqing hadn't returned from her previous life, she wouldn't have believed there was going to be a war because there was no news at all. Perhaps it should be said that these ordinary people have no news at all. Jiang Nanqing said solemnly, "Dad, I'm not talking nonsense, otherwise why do you think the court suddenly requisitioned so much grain? We have no control over the affairs of the court. Dad, what I'm saying is true. We can't stay here anymore, let's not talk about the war. The famine is so severe outside now, but our family is still living so well. What do you think people will do when they are hungry?" Upon hearing Jiang Nanqing's words, Jiang Shidong's face became solemn, and Jiang Nanqing continued. "Our family will become their target for looting, and we will really have nothing left, even our own safety will be difficult to guarantee. Dad, let's go, we really can't continue to stay here." End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Changes in Things. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8 Changes in Things. Jiang Shidong immediately fell into contemplation upon hearing Jiang Nanqing's words, because he had considered what Jiang Nanqing had said during this period. Jiang Shidong said with a serious expression, "Got it, I'll invite a few more people to take care of the house, so you don't have to worry about it." Jiang Nanqing is extremely anxious. Not to mention hiring a few more people, hiring dozens more is useless. Dad, it's useless. We can prevent it once, but we can't prevent it again. As long as we have food here, we can never have a peaceful day. There are thousands of people going hungry, and we can't live alone. Dad, let's go, please. In his previous life, Jiang Shidong was injured when he was being robbed at home, and he never recovered, which added considerable pressure to Jiang Xinliang. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Where are you going? Besides, we all have ancestral roots here, where can we go? Jiang Shidong cannot leave just because of Jiang Nanqing's words. All his wealth is here, and the family wealth accumulated by generations cannot be given up just by giving up. Jiang Nanqing saw that Jiang Shidong's attitude was so tough, and his passion instantly cooled. What if his father refused to leave? It was impossible for him to leave alone. While Jiang Nanqing was in a daze, Jiang Xinliang came back from outside and called out to her. "Sister, what are you thinking sitting here?" "It's nothing." Jiang Nanqing looked up and saw a strange man following behind Jiang Xinliang, and in an instant, all the blood on his face was gone. The man behind Jiang Xinliang has dark skin, looks loyal and honest, and has a burnt scar on his face. Jiang Nanqing remembers him, he was the person who led the way in the previous life to rob his own family. Isn't there still 5 days left? Why did he appear so quickly? Have things changed in this life? Jiang Xinliang saw that Jiang Nanqing was staring intently at the person behind him, and quickly said, "Just now, this big brother helped me a favor." He ran out of food at home and wants to borrow some from us for emergency. The man following Jiang Xinliang gave Jiang Nanqing an honest smile, rubbed his hands, and said obediently. Yes, yes, my family is really out of food. Great kind-hearted people, please do good deeds, and I will definitely repay you in the future. In Jiang Nanqing's eyes, the person in front of him was cruelly beating his family. He was protected by Jiang Shidong, and he was forced to vomit blood. However, the person in front of him stepped on Jiang Shidong's face and said some malicious words. At that time, Jiang Nanqing couldn't forget his gaze, and it even became a nightmare in the future. Sister, sister. Ah. Jiang Xinliang looked at Jiang Nanqing with a worried expression and asked, Sister, what's wrong with you? I called you several times but you didn't respond. Why is your face so ugly? Are you feeling unwell? Jiang Nanqing shook her head and forced herself out of the nightmare of her past life, speaking up. Xinliang, wait here with him while I go get some food. Ah. Oh. Jiang Nanqing ran to pack some food and handed it to the man, saying expressionlessly. Take it and leave. The man instinctively weighed the food in the bag, with a hint of greed in his eyes, but spoke with a very grateful expression. Thank you, thank you. You are really kind-hearted people, so I won't disturb you much. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Things Advance. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Things advance. After the man left, Jiang Nanqing's heart, which he had been carrying, slightly relaxed, but his face remained ugly, and the unease in his heart could not dissipate. Sister, what's wrong with you? Jiang Xinliang asked in confusion. He's not from our village. Where did you meet him, Xinliang? Jiang Nanqing asked seriously. It's right next to the village. Are there any other unfamiliar faces? Yes, there are several people I haven't seen before. What's wrong? Jiang Nanqing's heart felt as if it had been soaked in piercing ice water, his whole body shivering and he couldn't move. They had already arrived at this point, just waiting for an opportunity or wanting to understand the situation at home before taking action. Jiang Nanqing had a bad premonition that he couldn't sit idly by like this, so he whispered a few words in Jiang Xinliang's ear. Jiang Xinliang hesitated for a moment and said, Sister, isn't this good? Dad will definitely be furious when he finds out. My dear brother, you must have listened to my sister's advice. Even if my dad finds out, he won't blame you. I'll leave this matter to you. This is really a matter. Listen to me, if you're not willing, then I'll have to come. Then let me do it. If my dad finds out about this, it's really bad. We can't avoid punishment. Jiang Xinliang couldn't watch Jiang Nanqing being punished, so he could only agree. Jiang Nanqing has been going through a very difficult time these past 2 days. She always dreams about her past life at night, and the time to be robbed from home is getting closer and closer, which makes her very anxious and uneasy. That night, Jiang Nanqing tossed and turned and couldn't sleep, with a faint sense of unease in her heart. In the end, she decided not to sleep and went to the village in the dark to see if those people were still around. Jiang Nanqing came to the village with a nervous heart, surrounded by silence, pitch black, as if there was no one around. Just as she was about to leave with a sigh of relief, she suddenly noticed a firelight not far away, although it only flashed by and then disappeared. Jiang Nanqing walked towards the direction where the flames appeared, and then she saw the nightmare of her previous life. The area ahead was filled with people squatting densely. Jiang Nanqing stumbled and made a sound, quickly covering her mouth. Who? Who's there? I saw you, don't hide, come out immediately. Jiang Nanqing shrank herself into a ball, even slowing down her breathing. If she were to be discovered now, the consequences would be unimaginable. Seeing that there was no movement around, someone spoke up and said, Da Qing, where are their people now? Besides, with so many people here, even if someone really comes, we're not afraid. Anyway, our brothers are already prepared, and whoever comes is useless. Qing is the man brought back by Jiang Xinliang before. He looked around and did not find any abnormalities. He also felt that he was suspicious and spoke up. Don't worry, let's wait a little longer. Let's wait until they're all asleep before we start to move on to avoid any trouble. The Jiang family in the middle has the most food, so we'll directly surround the Jiang family and empty their food. Hee, my mouth is watering. I heard that the Jiang family is quite wealthy, and they can still enjoy eating and drinking spicy food at this time. TSK, I'll finish them all later. Jiang Nanqing's body couldn't help but tremble. It was not yet the time when something happened in her previous life, and things had really advanced. End of this chapter. What else is there in chapter 10? You are listening at novelfull.audio. What else is there in chapter 10? Jiang Nanqing didn't know how she got home, so she quickly knocked on the door of Jiang Shidong and the others. Dad, get up quickly. There are many people outside, we need to leave quickly. Get up quickly, don't even sleep. Jiang Shidong ran out without even putting on his clothes and asked as he looked at Jiang Nanqing. What's wrong? Jiang Nanqing's mind is now unusually calm, quickly explaining the current situation to Jiang Shidong and the others. Jiang Shidong was confused, and so was Wei Haixio. Jiang Shidong asked incredulously, is everything you say, Nanqing, true? Are you confused? Really, Dad, Xinliang, Aunt Haixio, we must leave here immediately now and not wait for them to rush in. Jiang Shidong gritted his teeth and said, but our home is here. Where can we go? If not, I'll fight with them. Dad, as long as our family is neat and tidy, no matter where we go, it's home. I beg you, let's go, otherwise it won't be too late. People who are hungry and anxious are even more vicious than bandits. Jiang Nanqing has already seen it once. Suddenly, the dog in the village started barking, and Jiang Nanqing said anxiously. Run towards the back mountain. Don't be stunned, come on. Sanjin, keep up. After going out, Jiang Nanqing shouted to remind the other people in the village who were still sleeping. The bandits have entered the village. Don't sleep, get up quickly. The bandits have entered the village. Jiang Nanqing can only do this. She is unable to protect herself and cannot manage so many people. Discovered. Discover it, brothers. The food is right ahead, everyone, hurry up. Jiang Nanqing and his companions ran out of the village under the cover of darkness, but they dared not stop and ran halfway up the mountain in one breath. Jiang Nanqing fell to the ground due to exhaustion, and Jiang Shidong helped her up. Jiang Nanqing gasped heavily and said. Run, come out. Run out. Jiang Nanqing wanted to cry very much. She turned back to look in the direction of the village, where there was a lot of fire and it seemed that she could still hear screams. She knew very well what had happened there and couldn't help but close her eyes. But at least this time, I brought out my most important person, and many things won't happen again. Jiang Shidong also stared blankly at the direction of the village, as if losing his soul, stumbling as he spoke. The village is gone, the home is gone, nothing is left, nothing is left, nothing is left. How could this be? Why could it be like this? Jiang Nanqing and the others fell into a long silence, and everyone's mood was particularly heavy. Just a moment. They became penniless and difficult for anyone to accept. Although Jiang Nanqing has experienced it once, she still finds it difficult to accept it again. Sanjin lay at Jiang Nanqing's feet, unaware of what had just happened, but it could feel the emotions of its owner. However, it could do nothing and could only quietly accompany them. Until dawn, Jiang Nanqing stumbled up and said to Jiang Shidong and the others. Let's go. Jiang Shidong asked in confusion, where are we going? Our home is gone, there's nothing left. I'm sorry to my ancestors, I lost my home and everything. Jiang Nanqing said, who said there's nothing left? We still have it. What else is there? Dad, I'll take you to see it, let's go. Even if things were advanced, Jiang Nanqing couldn't have been unprepared at all, otherwise she would have wasted her life. End of this chapter.